Best Available Podcast, episode 13. Want to thank you for joining us. It is a very windy Monday where we are, but it's nice and toasty in here in the Zoom meeting, which is always good. We have a very special interview in this episode. Our first guest for the podcast, Dr. Matt Harmon. We had a nice 50-minute conversation. We talked about sports broadcasting, the New York Red Bulls, why he hates the city of Philadelphia, and a lot more. So be sure to stay tuned and listen for that. That was a really fun interview. I'm glad we had a chance to do that. And I thought it went well, and I think you guys will enjoy it too. It is November 2nd. We are just about wrapped up with week 8 in the NFL. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk a little bit about a hire that happened in Major League Baseball last week that was very confusing to a lot of people. Then we'll get you into the interview, and then coming out of that, we'll have some segments that we'll have some fun with. So, Matt, it is now early November. We have officially now 2 months left in the year. It's kind of gone by quickly. It's kind of just slowly gone by, but we've made it to November. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling great, Ryan. I think the biggest thing today is to make sure your recycles don't fly away. I don't know if today's your recycle day or not. It is in our neighborhood. Not really sure how that works, that system. That's an adult thing that I'm going to have to learn. But November's great, Ryan. We're finally out of spooky season. We're now in the real season, which is the holiday season. And just a reminder out there, we were getting ready for Christmas. Christmas music was played last night in my house. We're officially on that. Thanksgiving is only good to watch Matt Stafford play and throw 3 picks. That's what that's good for. But yeah, it's exciting. Big day tomorrow. Also, Ryan, big day is election day. So make sure if you haven't gotten out to vote, you're one of what is it, 94 million people or whatever that vote tomorrow. Vote however you want to, but make sure you do it. So that'll be an interesting day. But yeah, I'm doing well, Ryan. Big win for your birds last night. But yeah, Halloween, Ryan, I'm surprised not as many people came by. I guess they listened to my soapbox segment last week. Saw a lot of people put it at the end of the driveway, like you said. So it looked like Halloween was done safely, which I don't think will be said about the next holiday we will have. So we'll take what we could get.
Yeah, we did end up doing that. We set up a little table, we put candy in little plastic bags, and then we just let the kids take it. And we had a decent amount of people, I guess. But yeah, that was a smart decision. We did have, I mean, our entire street, I would say, we probably were the only house that gave out candy, so we were kind of the outlier. But I don't know. I'm thinking long term vision. Next year, people are going to remember that we were the house that gave out candy when nobody else did. So that gets us some points. But Matt, you said that my birds got a win. We'll talk about that. They were a Sunday night game, so we'll hit on that one last, and for good reason because it was bad. We'll start with the early games. The only game we're not going to talk about. The Jets got blown out again, and that's all we have to say about that. So we're going to move on to the other games. We're going to kind of touch on most of them for one reason or another. I'll start with your team, the Patriots, who I don't know if you know what, I'm going to pull a cliche out of my cliche hat here. The score makes it look like the game was closer than it actually was. I never thought that the Patriots were actually in the game. I thought that the Bills kind of had a handle on it. I think the one positive for the Patriots was that Damian Harris is starting to look like a lead back, which is promising. I know Bill in the, he's kind of been forced to use a multitude of different running backs in the past, but I'm sure if you asked him, he would love to have a guy like he used to have in Corey Dillon who you could just pound the ball with and rely on him for the entire game. And it looks like Harris is kind of starting to become that guy. He had 16 carries for over 100 yards and a touchdown. I really thought that Josh Allen would be able to turn things around in this game, and yet he still wasn't really able to. But regardless, the Bills have now moved to 6-2 in an AFC East, which it seems like is theirs to lose at this point. So, Matt, give me your thoughts on how your team performed. This is uncharted territory for you, seeing the Patriots at 2-5.
Yeah, I guess this is what it's like to suck. Um, It's honestly not as bad as I thought it was going to be. I guess that's because I can rest easy at night knowing that the New York Jets are still playing football as well. Ryan, I disagree with you about the second half in terms of being competitive. I do think, especially on the last drive before Newton fumbled the ball, really every possession they had in the fourth quarter, they looked like a completely different team, like it was week 2 against Seattle. I think that they were right there. And I think if Cam doesn't fumble that ball, they score there and they win that game. I really do. With that being said, I still don't think they're a good team, but I do think that they played a lot better than they have in the past weeks. Some encouraging signs there. I think people have to understand that Jacoby Myers and Demir Bird were the top 2 receivers yesterday, so they weren't going to win regardless. Josh Allen didn't really wow me. The Bills didn't really wow me. Judging by the trajectories of these two teams coming into yesterday's contest, Ryan, the Bills should have won by 15, 16 points. So I'm a little surprised by that, I guess, from their perspective. So once we start getting closer to the playoffs, whoever comes out of the AFC East, whether it be Miami or Buffalo, I'm not impressed with either by what by following the division. The Patriots will be fine. Everyone said all the beat writers were talking about how Bill used a cap space excuse last week. It's actually true because then all the beat writers are going to come out and say, well, they're actually really far under the cap. Well, that's because we had so many opt outs. And by that point, all the good players were signed. So it was kind of stuck in this situation to where the Patriots couldn't really find replacements on defense for their opt outs. Doesn't excuse the fact that they've just not even tried to put in any weapons in for whether it was Tom or Cam or whoever, but get a top 10 pick or whatever, go into next year, hope and pray to God that they don't pick some defensive lineman with the top 10 pick. Hopefully they spend it on that guy from Alabama, Waddle, or whoever the best receiver is on the board. And then we move on with our lives. So there you go, Ryan. There's my honest assessment. I thought they were in the game in the second half. First half, I thought it was a blowout. Second half, they were in the game. They played better, and then they'll make me feel good next week because they played the Jets. So
Well, if
there you go.
I was gonna say, Matt, if anyone out there hates doing productive things with their free time, you can watch the Patriots travel to MetLife Stadium to play the 0-8 Jets on Monday Night Football next week. I don't know why they thought that was an appealing matchup, but
I mean, it wasn't at the beginning of the year when people were picking us to win the division. So I don't know. I would have taken New England, Miami over the Jets. It'll be a very good feel uplifting night for me next week. So that'll
well,
be nice.
and in fact, in case you really want to waste your time, they play at prime time the next week too, when they get to play at home against the Baltimore Ravens. So 2 consecutive weeks we get to watch the New England Patriots in a prime time game. I know I'm excited, partially because now it's not the Eagles that are going to be embarrassing in front of a national audience. It's a different team on the East Coast, but
Hey, we will win next week, and then they'll get blown out by Lamar Jackson. I wouldn't be surprised if that game gets flexed out, but I don't know if the Fox game's protected because I don't think they would take that game anyway because it's an AFC contest. So you might be stuck watching our horrible defense, Ryan. So there you go.
a team that I wasn't initially high on, and then I was high on, and now it seems like they're kind of broken is the Tennessee Titans. I thought that they would have had an easy rebound win against the Cincinnati Bengals. Well, look how wrong I was, because the Bengals thoroughly dismantled the Titans. The final score was 31-20. I think that this is another great example. Joe Burrow has looked very good. There's another rookie quarterback that's getting a lot of praise and for good reason, but Joe Burrow really looks like a future top quarterback in this league. I know the Bengals are only 2-5-1, but he's looked pretty good all throughout the entire season, in my opinion. So I want to give credit to the Bengals. I mean, they've been competitive this year for the most part, and I would know because the Eagles tied them. Imagine if the Bengals won that game, how much of a better position they would be in. But I want to talk about the Titans a little bit because this is a team that was looking like a bona fide contender, and now they've dropped 2 consecutive games. I Ryan Tannehill's looked a little iffy over the past 2 weeks. Now I'm a big Tannehill guy. I think this is just kind of like a 2 game slump that some quarterbacks have throughout the season. I think that he'll be able to turn it around, but Matt, I'm not going to say that the Titans are frauds like somebody we know, but they're starting to encroach on that territory if they don't start to turn things around.
Their defense, for a Mike Vrabel team, their defense is really bad. I mean, there's some drives where they can't get off the field. You gave up 31 points to a rookie quarterback, which should never happen, especially when your head coach is Mike Vrabel. I don't necessarily look at the offense as the issue. Again, I don't really think you should be allowing 31 points to the Cincinnati Bengals, who, by the way, are ahead of the Patriots in the standings right now. So awesome. But Tannehill is, I think we're starting to realize, Ryan, or for the people out there that thought he could be more than a game manager, we're now realizing that he is a game manager. He's a very good game manager who will make a couple plays. And that's not a derogatory term for a quarterback. It's just there's nothing spectacular about this team other than Derrick Henry. And he can only rush for 100 plus yards so many times. It's not going to win you a football game every week. So I still think they're the best team in their division, just because of the fact that I don't think Philip Rivers really makes the Colts that much more dynamic. But when it gets time for the playoffs, the way they play, I think, will benefit them, but their defense is not great at all.
There's another game here that I guess I don't really want to talk too much about. The Raiders beat the Browns 16-6. The wind was swirling. The best part of this game was the clip that was shown early on in the afternoon when kicker went for the field goal, and it was like a slider in baseball. It just went whoop, and then it wasn't good. But the Raiders won, so we don't have to talk about that
No,
one.
no,
The
no, no, no,
Colts,
no, 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 no. Park the bus here. Ryan, are the Browns not what you thought they were? They
yeah,
lost at home and only scored 6 points. And don't give me the wind excuse, because half the league dealt with the wind yesterday. So defend the Browns here. Defend
I
Baker Mayfield, who completed 12 passes for 122 yards.
I think that the Myles Garrett injury made things tough. I mean, they let Josh Jacobs run for what was it, 128 yards? I think, yeah.
Josh Jacobs doesn't play on the Raiders defense, though. They should be scoring more than 6 points with all that talent on offense, even without Odell.
I think that it was one of those games. I'm not fully as high on Baker as I used to be. I think that his performance this year has been a little concerning, but there's this team has a great chance to string some wins together. They play Houston next in 2 weeks. They have a bye this week, but then they have the Philadelphia Eagles, Jacksonville, Tennessee, Baltimore, the 2 New York teams. So they have a chance to get some more wins on the board. I still think they're going to make the playoffs. I think they're in a pretty good position. I think they only have to win 4 more times the rest of the season, and I see where the 4 wins are going to be. And if they win any more, that's great. But yeah, it wasn't a great day for me. I really talked up the Browns last week, and they proved me wrong with this whatever the hell this was. But
It's a
I'm
normal performance in Cleveland. What really helps their cause, though, Ryan, is that the Pittsburgh Baltimore game. The fact that Baltimore didn't win really helps their cause to not only stay in contention for the number 2 spot in that division, and the fact that they wouldn't have to be the last team in on the wild card slate. So that really helped their cause yesterday.
and because I know we have a Raiders fan that listens, I'm still not sold on the Raiders. So we're just gonna get that out. So we will talk about the Steelers and the Ravens because that was the marquee game of the early slate. And the Steelers remained undefeated, the only undefeated team left in the National Football League. They pulled out a 28-24 win. It was kind of back and forth. It was funny. PFT commenter tweeted out a list of like I got a. It was. I laughed when I saw it because it was a list of all the things that you would hear when you watched the this is great podcasting. The game, okay, here we go. So it was like no love lost. These teams don't like each other. Throw out the record books, old school football, just a bunch of stuff like that. And that made me laugh early in the day. But I've said it before and I say it again. The Steelers are a bona fide contender. They're the best team in the AFC by far. I think right now they're probably the one of two teams in the AFC where I can say, yes, I can see them in the Super Bowl. No doubt about it, 100%. But I still thought that there were encouraging signs from the Ravens. A lot of people have kind of been charting their demise, like, oh, they're not the same team, this and that. And I think Lamar is still struggling a little bit when it comes to the passing game, but it was nice to see J.K. Dobbins get some run. It was nice to see him be explosive. I think that's what that offense needs. I think they need to kind of phase out Ingram and get Dobbins in there. But Matt, this Steelers team is really good. Like I was able to watch this game because I didn't have to watch the Eagles at 1:00. And Matt, it's the Steelers are really good. Like they are really good.
They're the best team in football. I think they're even a step up on Seattle, and we'll talk about them later. But the Steelers are the most complete team in football, in my opinion, in terms of what they could do on offense. More so on defense, when you hold a Lamar Jackson offense to 24 points, I consider that kind of a victory in itself. There was questions on whether or not they got away with stuff on the final play of the game. That's besides the point. I am in the boat where I kind of doubted Big Ben at the beginning of this season. I didn't really know what to expect from this team, especially because this was kind of the same roster they had last year that got blown out week 1 at New England. And then they kind of got hit with injuries. They're all healthy this year, and we could see what they're doing. It's crazy to think, and I said this before, that this is one of the best starts in their franchise history of how rare it is for them to be this good right out of the gate, just because of their history, their pedigree, everything else. I think it's going to be Pittsburgh and Kansas City in the AFC title game, and that would be incredible. I think, Ryan, and probably really good for the league as well. Switching to Baltimore, they're going to really benefit from being that first wild card slot, Ryan, because Buffalo, Tennessee, I think they're going to really benefit from that first round matchup. So Lamar might be able to kind of break that stigma of not being a playoff quarterback this year, especially because I don't think the teams underneath Pittsburgh and Kansas City, as you said, really do anything for me.
I think the encouraging thing with Pittsburgh is that it's no longer they have to rely on Ben to extend plays and just heave the ball deep down the field. They're making his life a lot easier this year, which is good considering the injury that he's coming off of. They have a really good running back in James Conner. The running game itself has looked good throughout the entire season. And Ben, as I said, he's not having to do all these magic hocus pocus plays. It's really just taking what the defense gives him and then letting his receivers run after the catch and just gain as many yards as they can. And listen, that's fine. You don't have to always hit on deep passes every single game to be an effective offense.
Well, when you have a quarterback of his age, that's what it's supposed to be. That's why Tom went to Tampa Bay. That's why Phillip Rivers went to Indianapolis, where he has receivers that could do things after the catch. And I think when you have an older quarterback, and this is what I think Denver kind of struggled to do at times, you have to take the load off of them, like you said. And it's really paid off for Big Ben. Obviously, Peyton won a Super Bowl. Might not be the best example, but that wasn't always the perfect marriage when he was there. But I will be on the record, Ryan, as saying I did not think the Steelers were going to be this good. And I think I even might have had them on the edge of the playoffs, maybe not even being in. So I will go on record as saying I was wrong. But they're a fun team to watch, and I hope they get flexed in the primetime a lot more as the weeks go on. Because their defense it might be better, might score as more points than some NFL offenses, just in terms of the consistent pick sixes and forced fumbles. And their defense reminds me of the Bears defense from a few years ago, from I think either our senior year or our junior year. That's how good this defense is.
Well, and their defense is only going to get better because they made a trade with the Jets late last night. They're going to get Avery Williamson, and he posted a funny picture on Instagram. He's standing outside the Fulton Center in full Jets gear with an umbrella, which I liked. So that's their defense is going to get another reinforcement, which is just going to it should make them even better. I'm excited to see how good they can actually be, but there're just so many great guys on the defense. They've built this team so well. I mean, they're going to have to
And
find a QB for the future, but this team's. I mean, I know the NFL stands for not for long, but it looks like this team's going to be good for a while.
and the person I'm happiest for is Mike Tomlin. I think he never gets enough credit for how amazing of a coach he is. And I think this year finally kind of is like the nail in the head of saying he is one of the best coaches in the NFL. And I've been saying this for years. I love Mike Tomlin. I think he really gets the most out of his players every week. Even it's been prevalent the past couple of years with all their injuries, and they've been making playoff pushes late in the season. And you know, so far, and hopefully it stays true. They're all healthy and playing well, and I'm really happy for him. I hope he can make a run for a Super Bowl this year. He was a guy like Andy Reid who you kind of really wanted to win one.
Well, and I think I saw yesterday that he became the winningest minority coach in NFL history. He passed Tony Dungy, so that was nice to see. I agree. I think we have someone in our friend group. I don't know, but I think someone doesn't like him as a coach. At least they didn't used to like him. I don't know if they changed their opinion of him, but yeah, he's a very good coach. I wish that he was the coach of my football team, but yeah, it's nice to see him be so successful this year. I'm very happy for him, as you said.
And think about this. Sorry to cut you off, but think about this. He got criticized for the whole Le'Veon Bell situation with Bell leaving, then everything with Antonio Brown, he left. So imagine all that talent leaving, and they're sitting here with younger receivers, rookie guys, and they're 7-0. I think again that shows what he can do in the talent evaluators he has on his staff. All of that talent that exited that city over the past couple of years, and look at where they are. And those guys are bouncing around. Brown's living in Tom Brady's house, and Le'Veon Bell is in Kansas City backing up a rookie. So what does that show about Mike Tomlin? That he's a really good coach and can get the most out of guys that maybe not don't have that name value yet.
He's definitely going to be a Hall of Famer whenever he hangs up his coaching headset. He right now has a overall record of 140, 74 and 1. He's never had a losing record in his time at Pittsburgh, which is incredible just to think about how difficult that is. He's been the head coach there since 2007, the youngest guy to ever win a Super Bowl as a head coach. So he's been successful for a while. And if this is what it finally takes for people to realize, like, oh, wow, this guy's actually a good coach that knows what he's doing, then so be it. I'm glad that it's finally happening. Um, the Vikings defeated the Packers, another game that I had no idea that was going to happen. I saw some people saying that this was kind of the Viking Super Bowl, and I guess I kind of get that to an extent. I still don't know what's. I don't think that this is going to turn the Viking season around. They need a lot of things to go right, and they just traded Ngakoue away, so it's not like they think that they're going to contend. But Matt, I think the Packers are kind of in the same position. I'm in the same position with them as I am with the Titans. Is that a couple of weeks ago I kind of saw this team as one of the best teams, no doubt, in the conference. But as the weeks have gone on, I'm starting to have some issues with them. I think that I'd say their pass rush in particular is a little concerning. I don't think that they're going to get very far if the pass rush doesn't improve. I just don't see how it will. I thought that Aaron Rodgers has been fine, but I don't think he's playing to the MVP level that he was in the early part of the season. But uh, it's I, I I guess because of the division they're in, they'll probably be fine. I don't see the Bears overtaking them, but I don't know. I'm not as high on the Packers as I was a few weeks back. I'm kind of off the Packers right now, I think.
Mike Penton got shredded yesterday on social media because of the way Dalvin Cook shredded that defense, accounting for the entire offense from Minnesota. I don't. I agree. I don't know if it's going to turn their season around, but when you're in the Vikings position, there's not really much you could do when the entire NFC West is much better than you are. So contending for a wild card spot is going to be really hard, and I think they're too far behind to catch up in the division. Green Bay, I said this to myself yesterday too. What you exactly said. I'm not throwing around the F word, but I'm not impressed. I'm not impressed with a lot of the teams in the NFC, Ryan. I think we know what we're going to get out of Kansas City and Pittsburgh in the AFC. But in the NFC, even Seattle, their defense isn't very great, right? So there's a little bit more question marks with a lot of these teams at the top of the NFC. And Green Bay does benefit, as you mentioned, by a weak division. And good for the Vikings, I guess. They do this usually every year. Maybe not necessarily beating Green Bay, but beating a team they're not supposed to beat. And it's like, oh, well, maybe the Vikings, but yeah, I think Rodgers needs. I think this shows why they shouldn't have drafted Jordan Love with that first round pick, right? Because it was the Devontae Adams show and like nobody else. So they need to get this guy weapons soon. And in comparison, they gave Roethlisberger all these weapons in Pittsburgh, and look at what he's doing with the Steelers. And 5-2 is still a really good start. Don't get me wrong, Ryan, but it's going to be really easy later in the season to kind of bracket off Adams and force Rodgers to throw it to some of these other guys.
Matt, I know this is going to be a tough conversation to have with you. You're a lifelong fan of the Detroit Lions, but they fell to the Indianapolis Colts yesterday, 41-21. So now they've dropped to 3-4. They haven't won at home in almost a year. The running game, they ran 13 times, and their leading rusher was Jamal Agnew, who ran one time for 11 yards. DeAndre Swift had one total rushing yard on the day. For Indianapolis, it wasn't anything that Jonathan Taylor did. Jordan Wilkins handled most of the rushing duties, and then they had a boatload of players that contributed in the passing game. Phillip Rivers, I think, is starting to look a little better than he did towards the early part of the season, but I don't know if I can still fully trust him. I think I still need to see a little more out of him. Whoa, bird just flew by my window. I don't know if I'm fully ready to trust the Colts. I don't know if that's what I took away from this game, although I think it was impressive that they put up 41 points. I think this is more I wanted to see how you're feeling about your Detroit Lions. I mean, you said that they were going to make the playoffs, but now they dropped to 3-4. How are you feeling?
Ryan, I am not phased right now.
Okay.
I think Patricia is saving all of those wins at home for later in the year, right? Because he wants to build up anticipation to the Thanksgiving contest against Houston.
Yeah.
And that's when the ball is going to start rolling. They play the Vikings, the football team, Panthers, and then Houston in the month of November. I see 4 wins right there. I love you got to. So, in all seriousness, right? So, obviously, you could tell by the tone of my voice, some of it's kind of just joking, but Matt Stafford, we got to get this guy on a good team, Ryan. Like, he's always been one of my favorite players, and he's so loyal to this city that has literally given him nothing around him to win football games. So I feel bad for this guy. I love watching him play. But yeah, they have an entire winnable month in November, Ryan. They could very easily be in the mix. I will say that. I might redact my playoff statement, but they will be in the mix by the end of November. In the hunt. They will be on the in the hunt graphic on Fox when they show the playoff picture first week of December. They might even win the first week of December, Ryan. They played the Bears. I could see some wins on this schedule. I really can. But then they play Green Bay, Tennessee, Tampa Bay, and then Minnesota. So that's not great. But as a lifelong Detroit Lions fan, Ryan, especially the fact that they have half the Patriots defense on their team, I think they still got a chance.
I want to move on to a game that was a little more intriguing than that one, and that was the Rams and the Dolphins. It was finally two a time. We had someone in a group chat say that the Dolphins are for real. I need people to pump the brakes a little bit on that. They had 145 yards of total offense, so let's slow down a little bit on the Dolphins' praise. The defense and the special teams look good. I'll give them that. When Jared Goff passes the ball 61 times in a game, you're probably not going to win when you have to let him throw the ball 61 times. I want to make that clear. Jared Goff in an NFL game threw the ball 61 times. I don't know why, but Matt, the Dolphins are 4-3, and I'm gonna come out and say it. So I hope that people are supportive of me coming out and saying this. The Rams are frauds. They're not good. They were lucky enough to play the 4 NFC East teams already. They're not going to make the playoffs. They might be the worst team in that division. So I came out and said it. I'm taking a stand. It's nerve wracking, but I hope people understand.
I think the Rams aren't going to be too much different than they were last year, which was average, and that's fine. I mean, for some teams, but for a team that was in the Super Bowl a couple of years ago, you kind of expect better results. I agree, Ryan. I was kind of overlooking the NFC East factor a couple of weeks ago, but the Dolphins aren't a good football team. Let me rephrase. Let me spin this for the people. As someone who has watched the AFC East my entire life, the Dolphins' defense is really good. Brian Flores has done an incredible job. I think that's what their calling card is going to be. If the Dolphins had Ryan Fitzpatrick starting at quarterback, they would be the best team in this division. And I would say that with confidence. But with Tua at quarterback, I wasn't really impressed, Ryan. I mean, he's a rookie quarterback. I understand his first game, the training wheels were still on, but that's what I have to say. It's just like, like I'm not going to sit there and say that they're going to be a feisty playoff team fighting for a wild card spot, could steal a win on the road. The NFL probably hopes they're a playoff team because Tua would bring up the ratings. But like Fitzpatrick would have made this team probably just as good as Buffalo. I don't know if you agree with me or not, but especially after the way the Bills been playing the past month, I think the Dolphins are on a better track before they put in Tua. I thought they would have probably won the division if Fitzpatrick was at quarterback.
I talked about this with fellow best available player team member Nicholas Halper. I'm fine with them putting Tua in. I don't think that them sneaking in as the 7th seed this year does much long term. I think that you need to see what you have in Tua and then reevaluate at the end of the year if you need to. And I think this is the perfect time to put him in. I know that they were 3-3 coming into the game and they were kind of in the playoff picture, but there's not a lot of pressure right now, and he can just kind of ease his way in and just acclimate himself, I think is the word I want to use, to the National Football League and playing the quarterback position. And I need to go back and watch the tape. I mean, the stat line doesn't jump off the page at all, but I'd like to go back and watch the tape again just to really hone in on Tua and see how he did. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if Fitzpatrick makes this team a playoff team. I mean, you
I
really
think
don't know what you'll get
it
week to week with
does.
Fitzpatrick. I get the whole, oh, if it's magic, look how good he's doing this and that. At the same time, he can have some really down weeks, and especially if he string a couple of those together, I mean, I just don't think that Fitzpatrick starting for quarterback just to try to get into the playoffs is the best thing long term for this franchise. I'm not advocating
No,
them
I
trying to
agree.
lose, but
I
I,
agree. I'm taking my point was from the perspective of that person who said the Dolphins are for real. I thought they would be for real if Fitzpatrick was still in. I can make that case. But I agree with you to just put Tua in and see what you could get. He got the time to sit and watch an NFL game from the sideline. Now he's put in. I agree with you that there's just too many teams ahead of them that they're really going to, a playoff appearance isn't going to do anything. But I will say that they are on pace and have this trajectory to where I think they'll be better than the Bills in probably 2 years in this division. I would even argue that they're a better team than them this year, depending on who's playing a quarterback. But again, I agree with you that they aren't worried about wins and losses this season. Although they've proven that they can beat some really good teams.
well, and I think they were more apt to put into a because they have the Texans first round pick and the Texans second round pick. So it's not like they need to worry about their own draft position this year in case they win too many games or whatever. Like this team, as you said, they have talent on the team. They're going to be good in a couple of years, and now they're going to have maybe they might have two top 10, top 12 picks because the Texans right now are 1-6. So the Dolphins are going to add even more young talent to this team. So yeah, I agree. They're going to be a team to watch in this division. I wouldn't be surprised if they overtook Buffalo in a couple of years. I think that's a very real possibility, especially considering what happens with Josh Allen. I think that'll be a big thing to watch. But yeah, Tua time was it was kind of an start, but hopefully he kind of gets things together as the season goes on. That would be exciting to see. I'm a big Tua guy. I'm very supportive of him. I like the draft pick at the time. So I'm obviously a little biased, but I think that he can. I think he can make it work down there this year. Um, moving on here to the late games, and Matt, the late games were a lot of fun yesterday. The four o'clock games, the late afternoon slate. So we'll start. Where do we want to start? We'll start, I guess, in Denver because that was the earliest 4 o'clock game where they pulled out a 1 point victory over the Los Angeles Chargers. I knew as soon as they kicked that field goal late in the fourth quarter to only go up 6, I said, it's over. There's no way they win this game. That was the worst thing they could have done. I would have rather them gone for it because maybe at least then they would have won. But man, it's almost impressive the way that the Chargers find ways to continually blow games. And it's got to be so bad to be a Chargers fan because it's not like they're in. I think that if you're not a Chargers fan, I don't know if you understand this. They're in like almost every game they play, and then they just find ways to lose. Like I almost think it's worse than the Falcons at this point because you see the statistic about how many times they lose one score games. That's got like how do you come back from that? Like that's got to be so mentally defeating.
Yeah. The Chargers and Falcons play, I think, later this season, which will bode for a really comical performance to see who will try to lose more. Denver, is it? I don't want to. I want to structure what I'm going to say here to where it's not a hot take. But is it bad that I'm still I'm more leaning Herbert than I am Locke coming out of this game. I think Drew Locke's a good quarterback, but I don't know. Something about the Broncos doesn't jump out at me as much as the Chargers. I think the Chargers are a better team than Denver. It's just their record, as you said, they lose all of these games that they should have won. So I think the Chargers are a better team than Denver. And I'm saying I don't think Drew Locke's the issue. I'm just trying to figure out what about this Denver team doesn't really wow me. And I know they have injuries on offense. I know they have injuries on defense. But I think LA is better than them. I really do. And I think if the coaching was different yesterday or the decision making down the stretch, the conversation would be much different. Maybe we're talking about can the Broncos is this like the right direction for Denver? But instead we're talking about how the Chargers blew another game. So I'm just not I don't know why I'm just not really impressed with Denver. I don't know if you could help me out here.
Well, Locke had a very, very bad first half. He did not look good at all, but I'll give credit to him. He bounced back. He's been very up and down this year. And as you said, I think the injuries on the offense played a part in that. I mean, he himself was injured as well. So I think he still might be working back from that, even if they don't want to come out and say it. But yeah, the offense this year for the Broncos has not been very good. I mean, they put up 31 points. The only other team they've put up 30 or more points on this year is the Jets, which isn't really that big of an accomplishment. And that game, I think, was a lot closer than they would have liked it to have been. I like Locke long term still. I do think that he can be the answer there in Denver. But having said that, I do like Herbert a little more long term than Locke, just based on how he's performing. Listen, I think I've said it before and I'll say it again. I was wrong about Herbert. This is not the guy that I saw his senior year at Oregon. This is somebody completely different. He just looks so comfortable, so poised. He's making everything look so easy. But having said all that, because I'm going to go back to this group chat, I need to address something. Somebody said that Herbert is close to elite. No, he's not. There's two elite
Provide the
quarterbacks in the
list.
league right now, and Herbert ain't close to them. It's Mahomes and Wilson. Those are the two elite quarterbacks in the league right now. Herbert's not close. He said that, what did he say? Herbert's a top 10, close to top 5. No, he's not.
Yeah, I'm saying provide if pull up the list that was provided,
Oh,
and I'll
oh boy.
yeah,
Oh yeah, that
I'll
was
clear. And I want to when you search for that, I'm gonna clear. I like Drew Lock. I want to state this before we go back. I want to make sure for all the listeners, I like Drew Lock. I would have loved to see him with Cortland Sutton this year, Ryan. I think you would agree with me. So I think long term he is the solution too, but this is a big play offense for Denver that won't make him look good for a full football game just yet. But I think the injuries are playing a factor. Ryan, go ahead.
quarterbacks I would want for one season ahead of Herbert. Not me, not me. The person that we're talking about and referring to. I know he listens to the podcast, so I hope he enjoys this segment. Number one, Mahomes. Number two, Lamar. Already you're wrong. Number three, Russ. Russ should be number two. Number four, Rogers. Number five, Tom. Number six, Josh Allen with a question mark. Number seven, Herbert. Number eight, Joe Burrow. Number nine, Drew B.
Ryan
What?
just Ryan just made a face right now for anyone not watching this.
That he has he
This
he's
is
been a
also the
Herbert.
same person that thought that Jake Fromm was going to be a starting quarterback and that he should have been drafted by the Patriots and starting right now. So that we also need to take this into account with this take.
And I want to make it clear that this is word for word what this person said about Herbert. He is close, not yet, but close to top five. Again, Justin Herbert is a top 10 QB and is borderline, all capital letters, elite. That's the problem, I think, with a lot of the sports media. They just throw around the word elite. Herbert has looked okay. Both of these things can be true. He has looked very good in his rookie season, better than anybody expected him to look, and he's given the Chargers the juice and the excitement that they needed this season. He's making throws that people didn't expect him to make. He's showing off all his talents, and he's proving that he can be a long-term answer for the Chargers. But that doesn't mean that he's a top 10 quarterback. That doesn't mean that he's borderline elite. And that doesn't mean that you can just throw around all these words and say, oh, if I need to have one quarterback for one season, Herbert would be number seven. That's not right. That's factually incorrect. That's discounting all the other really good quarterbacks in the league that have proven this consistently. Oh, and okay. We want to talk about proving it consistently. He hasn't seen enough from Kyler to put him on that list, even though Kyler's been in the league for now his second year. So I'm glad that we got a chance to do that. I needed to get that off my chest because that made me a
And
little upset.
also, we also have to keep into account the weapons that he has there to be able to run an offense. It's very much different than what a lot of rookie quarterbacks get, right? If you compare like Joe Burrow's receiving core and skill players or Tua's, he's got one healthy Austin Eckler, Justin Jackson, Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, Hunter Henry. This is a really good kind of plethora of weapons around him. And I'm not taking anything away from Justin Herbert, but at the same time, we have to take into account he's throwing to Pro Bowl talent out there. Joe Burrow's not really throwing to Pro Bowl talent. And you could say, well, AJ Green's still there, but he's not really trying half the time. So he's got I think Herbert went to by far the best situation out of these rookies.
Yeah, I agree. 100%. So yeah, that's a good point. I fully agree. So listen, Herbert, you could be excited about him. I'm excited about him long term. Just slow down on the praise. Just wait to see him do it consistently. Let's just let him get a full season under his belt, and then we can revisit it. The Seahawks, one going away against the 49ers. Now they're going to have 3 road games over the next 4 weeks. I think they have a bye week sprinkled in there. Oh no, they just have a Thursday night game. That's what it is. They won 37-27 over the Niners. I think they were up 30-6 at one point, and then the Niners kind of figured out that they were supposed to score points on offense, and it wasn't even with Garoppolo because he left with the game with an injury. The Seahawks are far and away, I'd say the best. Well, maybe not far and away. That's disrespecting a different team, but They are right now probably the best team in the NFC, although the second best team I think is closing in. They're
Who'd you
letting Russ
consider the
cook.
second? Yeah. Who'd you consider the second best team?
I would go right now Tampa Bay. I like them more than a team that we're going to talk about in a second. Um, and then yeah,
I agree.
that's how I would do it. Yeah. Yeah, the Seahawks are letting Russ cook. They had to start DJ Dallas because the other running backs they had, all three of them were injured. And clearly, I mean, they put up 37 points, so I think that they were okay. DK Metcalf had the big game, so Lockett had the big game last week. Metcalf had the big game this week. As a fantasy owner, that's really frustrating, but as just an NFL fan, it's fun to watch. Really glad that the Eagles took JJ Arthega-Whiteside over DJ Metcalf. Really glad. That's great move by the front office. DK Metcalf wouldn't do anything here, clearly. But yeah, Matt, I think that this game more than anything proved to me that the 49ers are done. They might get to 8 wins, maybe, but I don't think that the Niners are going to make the playoffs this year. I think that this game proved it to me.
Yeah, I will see your JJ Arthega Whiteside, and I will raise you a N'Keal Harry taking over DK Metcalf. 49ers just have too many injuries, Ryan. I think if they were healthy, it would have been a different script. But, when you lose the guys they have on a consistent basis with Garoppolo going down in a couple games or getting benched too, and it's it's just not their year, right? And I've come to terms as a Patriots fan that it isn't my year. 49ers fans are going to have to kind of realize that too. I get they're still in the divisional race, but you got Mostert on IR, you got half your team done for the year. You just got to pack it up and move on to next year. In terms of Seattle, Ryan, we're going to really kind of find out how good this team can be. We know what they are now and how good they are, but how dominant they can be in the next 3 weeks is you play Buffalo, who I think they'll just blow out. Then they play the Rams, the Cardinals, the Eagles. So pretty good teams on the schedule for the next month or so. I want to say one thing before we move on about the Seattle offense. 38, 35, 38, 31, 27, and then back to back of 37. That's their offensive output each week. This is something we've never seen from the Seahawks, Ryan, in the Pete Carroll era because of the run heavy style, not letting Russ cook, as you said. But I think that this is finally showing to people, if there's still doubters out there, that Russell Wilson is an MVP caliber quarterback and he throws the best deep ball in the league. And he's right up there with Mahomes. You could say Mahomes, but what Russell Wilson does and the accuracy on every single throw, it's remarkable. And as I said, those numbers, Ryan, their offense is scary good. Their defense is also, a lot of these games, Ryan, their defense is 25, 30, 31, 23, 26, 34, and 27. So it's letting up a lot of points, but they're doing what I think it was like 2010, the 2010 Patriots of just outscoring everybody. And they're just outscoring everyone. They have a crap defense, but they're just scoring an incredible amount of points.
If Russ doesn't get MVP this year, someone's going to get the hands because this is finally his year. And I'm going to be very perturbed if he doesn't get that award that he's deserved before and has never gotten it. Final 425 game, the New Orleans Saints off the traveled to Chicago to play the Chicago Bears. And they were lucky to get out of Chicago with a win. It was closer than I thought it would be. They won 26-23 in overtime. Once again, Drew Brees didn't have any of his receiving options, so he had to rely on Alvin Kamara a lot. And I mean, to their credit, I guess it worked, but I'm still not fully sold on the Saints. Maybe once they get back Sanders and Thomas, their offense will look a little better. But right now, I think that they're still the second best team in that division behind Tampa Bay, who plays tonight against the Giants. So that should be a win. I think more than anything, this left me a little more impressed with the Bears. Their defense has been pretty solid this year. I mean, they just don't have the quarterback really to put up a lot of points. I think that's going to be their downfall. I think they can still sneak into the playoffs as one of the wild card teams, the 5 through 7 seeds, but that's probably their ceiling. I don't know. But the Saints improved to 5-2, which is big. They're going to keep pace in that division, and they set themselves up very well for a really cool Sunday night matchup next week between the Saints and the Buccaneers. That'll be a lot of fun, a lot better than what last night's Sunday night matchup was.
Yeah, I'll keep my take short because I know we have the doctor coming up soon on the show. I'm not really impressed with either one of these teams, Ryan. No matter even if Thomas and Sanders come back, I'm very whelmed by both of these teams. I think there's a gap between both of them and Seattle and Tampa Bay, and I'll put Green Bay kind of on the fence here of this kind of gap between these two. But New Orleans, I get that they didn't have their best two receivers on offense. Chicago at points, I kind of questioned Matt Nagy again, which is kind of a weekly segment for me, but I'm just very whelmed by both of these teams. Nothing really jumps out yet. I agree with you. Maybe when their receivers come back, New Orleans might take that step forward, but who knows when Michael Thomas is going to play? As someone who has him on his fantasy team, who the heck knows?
The final game, I I feel bad for this people that voluntarily watch this on Sunday night. The Eagles defeated the Cowboys 23-9. It was a bad game on both sides. Carson Wentz had one of the worst halves of football I think I've ever watched in the first half. I think Chris Collinsworth said that 43 minutes into the game, Ben DiNucci finally made the first normal throw of the night for him, and the Eagles had just taken like a 15-9 lead over a guy that was just doing sidearm passes all game. They were lucky to get that defensive scoop and score that should have been blown dead because Curry had possession, but they just let it go. So they let the Eagles get some more points. So I want to thank the referees for that. I'm going to send them a Christmas card for that one. It made the game look not as close as it actually was. I still think, I'm going to sound crazy for saying this, I still think that if the Eagles can continue to get healthy, they might surprise some people. Having said that, they need Carson Wentz to actually play the quarterback position proficiently because that was not what he did last night. It's not what he's done all season. I tweeted out last night that he's 28. He's going to be 28 next month. This is what he is. He's not going to suddenly change. I do think that they need to find a better long-term answer at the position. Is that Jalen Hurts? I don't know. I don't know if we're ever going to find out. I still don't know why they picked him in the second round. The way they use him each week just boggles my mind. But I think it's safe to say that they're the favorites in the NFC East. I'd be shocked if they don't win the division. It was funny, they put up a graphic that the Eagles could win the division at 4-11-1 and host a playoff game. I really need that to happen. I would love for that to happen. But yeah, I mean, do you have any thoughts on the game? I mean, the Cowboys are done. Their season's over. Their season's been over since Dak went down, but now it's officially over at 2-6. This was a bad game. I said it was worse than the Giants-Eagles game the week before. I don't know how that was possible, but it was somehow worse.
I think the only team that could remotely challenge the Eagles in this division is Washington. I know we talked about it last week. It's the only team that I could see kind of sneaking in there and maybe making things interesting. I agree with Wentz. DiNucci actually had more yards than him for the game. I don't really know if Hurts is the answer. I don't know why they sneak him in there for a couple plays a quarter. It's like the Taysom Hill philosophy, Ryan, except on like a lesser level. The Cowboys stink. But hey, a win's a win, Ryan, right? And you're a division leading team. I have grown to appreciate the value of a win, especially having not seen one for a month as a Patriots fan. So you got to win, right? You beat the teams that you're supposed to beat on your schedule. So the Birds, Ryan, are in a good spot. I saw a stat. Travis Fulgham is having like the 7th best receiver season in the Doug Peterson era, and he's played like 5 games. I don't know if you saw that tweet or not, but I guess that's good, right? You got a nice receiver in Travis Fulgham. So there you go. Go Birds, Ryan.
if they didn't have Fulgham, they might have one win on the season, and it's really bad that you have to say that. They lucked into this guy. Thankfully, it doesn't take away from the fact that they haven't put it up. I'm not going to get into it. That's a conversation for a different day. Okay. First interview we have with friend of the show, Dr. Matt Harmon. As I said at the beginning of the episode, we talked about a lot of fun stuff. We talked about Monmouth University. We talked about him becoming a doctor. We talked about the sports broadcasting field, especially this year. We talked about the New York Red Bulls, MLS as a whole, and we talked about why he doesn't like the city of Philadelphia. So here's the interview with our good friend, Dr. Matt Harmon. Wow, what an interview that was, Matt, huh? That was a lot of fun. I'm glad we did get to do that in all seriousness. His Philadelphia take irked me a little bit, but having said that, it's always nice to talk to him, especially in a setting like that. That was a lot of fun. I thought we got a lot of good insight from him, and I hope that we can get him on again soon. He's a great guy. Really glad that we got him to be our number one guest. We were talking him up for 2 months, so I hope that you guys enjoyed it.
I think it lived up to the hype, especially because the 2 month buildup. In that time, he became Doctor Matt Harmon. Always good to catch up to him. MLS playoff push. Red Bulls going to probably be in the mix in the postseason. So, friend of the show, as you said, always good to catch up with the doctor.
So we're gonna have a new segment on the show starting next week, but we're gonna introduce it now. So it'll be one of our segments. And I need to look at the group chat here just so I can get the parameters. I need to make sure I don't miss anything here. Um, I think that we're gonna call this Disney Plus and Glen. Yeah, there. Yep. Okay. So that's what this segment is called, Disney Plus and Glen. So friend of the show, Glenn DeNegris, local Islanders fan, Glenn DeNegris, had told us that Frozen was on television last night, to which the other three of us replied, never seen it. So Glenn immediately thought that we were uncultured. So now he's going to give us a Disney movie to watch, it seems, each week. And we have to watch it and then talk about it on the show the next week. And so the first movie that we have to watch is Frozen. I did a poll, a very scientific poll on Twitter. Should I have seen Frozen by this point in my life? And the results were 58.3% of people voted yes, 41.7% of people voted no. So it was pretty close. So I guess I'm not the only one that's never seen this movie. Now I'm looking at the description, Matt, and I need to point out this description is not on Disney Plus. It's not on Wikipedia. So do with that information what you will. Uh, Frozen revolves around a group of three people in horror days when going skiing in the mountains. When the newly crowned Queen Elsa accidentally uses her power to turn things into ice to curse her home and infinite winter, her sister Anna teams up with a mountain man, his playful reindeer, and a snowman to change the weather condition. Duration 102 minutes. So I guess I
You
have
sound
to
very
watch
thrilled.
this.
Yeah.
I guess I'll have to watch this for next week. It was released in 2013, so I guess it's been 7 years.
Infinite Winter
Yay.
sounds rough, Ryan. I mean, they got to walk outside the castle every day and, you know, kind of chip away at the ice off of the windows of I guess no, they don't have cars, right? It would be like a
I,
kingdom. So horses, so
I
you wouldn't have to scrape ice off your windshield in the morning. So I guess Infinite Winters aren't necessarily, I mean, you probably have to find an indoor space for the horses, right? Because it's not like a car, you can't leave it outside. You seem very thrilled to watch Frozen during the week. I think you might be more thrilled out of the both of us. I mean, we kind of walked into it because we all said no instantaneously that we never seen it. So I feel like this was destined to happen at some point. Um, but yeah, be fun, right, Ryan?
stars Kristen Bell, Dina Menzel, Jonathan Groff, Josh Gad, director Chris Buck, Jennifer Lee. Okay, so that's we're going to talk about Frozen next week. So be prepared for that. Um, we'll do Pops My Tarts. I guess would be a good one. So, Matt, I'll start with you. What pops your tarts?
The wind pops my tarts.
Mm,
You walk outside and big wind gust hits you, and all of the time you spent doing your hair just instantly gone because the wind messed it up. So, at wind, who do you think you are? That's what I have to say to the wind.
mm.
There you go. And then it blows over like the trash can or the recycle bin, and then you see like people's Coke bottles flying all over the place, and then like a wine bottle rolling down the street, and just creates havoc. So the wind pops my tarts.
Okay, that's a good one. Um, what pops my tarts is baseball teams hiring out of touch managers. Um, so the White Sox hired Tony La Russa, and that was one of this year has been completely bizarre, and that's probably at the top of my list of the most bizarre things that have happened in the world this year. The White Sox hiring an old white guy that's really out of touch, and he tried to play it off like I'm not out of touch. I've been in the game. It was a stupid hire, especially with the things he said in the past. It's not going to work out. I don't know out of all the great young minds in the league today why they think that he's the answer. And I know I'm not going to say, "Oh, if he proves me wrong, he's not going to prove me wrong." That team's not going to prove me wrong. They set their organization back years by hiring him to be the new manager. If you wanted to get rid of Rick Renteria, it was to bring in a younger guy that could help push you over the top. This is not that move.
I didn't even have really an issue with Rick Renteria. I remember asking you at one point, why did they really get rid of him to begin with? And to bring in one of these younger guys, I get it. But hearing some of the reports, and I don't know the factuality behind a lot of it, but of, Jerry Reisdorf basically saying, like, I want LaRussa, like, it was Jerry's hire. Um, LaRussa, to put this in perspective, the last time he was in a dugout was what, 2011, right? That was 9 years ago. And you say, oh, well, he's still kind of in touch with the game. And the fans were justifying it when he did a YouTube interview with their play-by-play guy, Jason Benetti, of like, well, he seems like he's been in touch with the game. There's a difference. There's no way a 76-year-old dude's going to connect with these young 23-year-old players that they have. And the White Sox were one of the more exciting teams in the American League this past season. And he's going to take the excitement right out of it. I don't really know what the point of it was. I get they don't want the bad publicity of bringing in AJ Hinch, Alex Cora, both of which would have been better hires than La Russa. But like, why? Right? And you see guys like Ron Gardenhire and some of those names from, help me phrase this, Ryan, from like our childhood, right? Ron Gardenhire, Tony La Russa. These guys have been kind of phased out as years have went on. There's probably more that are on the tip of my tongue that I can't remember. But in any case, La Russa is part of our childhood of that group of managers, right? Because Gardenhire isn't in baseball anymore, and now like a seven, that makes no sense to me. It's sad to see too because Chicago has waited a long time for this young talent to kind of come to fruition, and it did this past season, and the excitement will be taken out of it. So, you know, yay, I guess. It's just it pops my tarts too. I'm confused. I genuinely am. What was wrong with Rick Renteria? And you know what the sad reality is, Ryan, is that the Red Sox are going to bring back their manager who was suspended a full season for a cheating scandal, and he'll be the best hire of the entire offseason. How does that happen?
Uh, I don't have the energy to talk about it anymore. I think I expended all my energy the day it happened. Um, Matt, our third segment, I'm gonna get. This is all you. Um, there's a show going on right now each week. I think it's on Thursdays. It was originally supposed to start in May, but it got postponed to October. Um, and it's pretty popular. And it's called. It's on ABC's. Oh, it's on Tuesdays. I'm sorry. It's on ABC nightly, like I think 8 p.m. and it's called The Bachelorette. So, what's going on? I see we have a great group of guys, great group of contestants this year. It seems like we still have a baker's dozen still in the hunt. I see a former pro football wide receiver and a lineman.
Oh, well,
Uh,
that's he's the storyline, Ryan.
okay, so give me
Dale Moss,
yeah.
former NFL. I think he was a practice squatter. He got some run in the old Arena Football League with the Los Angeles Kiss as well. Dale and Claire. So Claire's the Bachelorette, right? She's the oldest Bachelorette in the show's history. So she right off the bat has this love at first sight thing with this guy Dale. Like as soon as he gets out of the limo, she's like, "Oh my god, Dale, I love Dale." So then she's giving him all the attention, not paying attention to the other dudes. They're starting to get pissed off. One guy left the show. He said, "I expected more out of the oldest Bachelorette in history because she made the guys play basically naked dodgeball." So it's getting very scandalous on the show as the years have gone on. Ryan, you look very interested about the
No,
Bachelorette. I wasn't expecting a Bachelorette segment.
I'm just gonna let you talk, and I'm gonna listen because I
So then basically the guys are all jealous or upset at Claire. I guess with good reason because it's such a they're not she's not even giving these other dudes a chance. She's like, oh, I just want them. She was on a group date with the guys. Dale was on the group date. And then she kept giving Dale all the attention and kept going back to him and saying, I just want the night to end. She doesn't want to, like, she wanted to speed it up because she didn't want to talk to the other dudes because she just wanted to talk to Dale. So now next week, it's going to be this whole big thing. It's on Thursday this week because we have a big election tomorrow night about whether or not she's going to stay on, if she's just going to go fall in love with Dale and end the show. And there's a potential that they bring and Tasha, who is on Colton's season, to be the new Bachelorette, which would be great. So busy, lots of drama.
okay. So we're gonna do that every week. He's gonna tell me, keep me up to date because I there's too much going on in my life. I can't take the time to sit down and watch it.
Well,
But
especially now that we have to add a Disney movie to our routine every week. It's going to be a busy show watching week for us. Bachelorette on Thursday this week, due to ABC's election coverage tomorrow night.
so that was our episode. So we debuted 2 new segments that you can listen to each week, and we had a fun interview. So we hope that you enjoyed listening to this episode of Best Available Podcast, and we will catch you guys again next week. Thank you for listening. Catch you guys later.